Ladies and gentlemen, this session, Experience for Hire, is hosted by AARP. Please welcome the Director of AARP Michigan, Paula Cunningham. Director of the Michigan Department of Talent and Economic Development, Roger Curtis. President and Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Manufacturers Association, Chuck Haddon. And to moderate the discussion, the founder and Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Business Network and President of AARP Michigan, Chris Holman.
Well, everybody sat in their own spots, so you're all in trouble. Well, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. I am Chris Holman. You heard the wonderful panel that's here. It's kind of interesting. We were sitting not long ago at AARP, and what kept coming up, and we've all seen these numbers, by survey, was that the number one challenge for businesses in the state of Michigan was talent. It was getting talent. It was retaining talent. Very difficult. Number two issue, by the way, was growth. And what they meant by that was not how do you contend with growth, but how can you start growing without people? So it was a real challenge. So the top two issues for business in the state of Michigan statistically relate to talent. So we started talking, how can AARP chip in on this and be part of the solution? And that led us to a little bit of planning and today's announcement. We're happy to have everybody here to help us make it. And we're happy to have you here to hear about it and how you can get involved. So with that, let me turn it over a little bit. Paula Cunningham, our executive director, give a little rundown on exactly what the program is, if you would.
Well, we are just absolutely thrilled, as Chris mentioned. By the way, he is our volunteer state president, so we're thrilled to have him and to be partnering with so many wonderful organizations like Michigan Manufacturers Association and also Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Michigan Retailers, Detroit Medical Center, just the list goes on and on, Detroit Regional Chamber. But you may not know this, but every single day there are 10,000 people who turn 65 every day. And when you think about 65-year-olds today versus when I was growing up, 65-year-olds and what that meant then, they were like old people. They're like really, oh, they're 65. But today it's very different, and you know that from the people that you know, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old is very different than it used to be. And so AARP, oh, by the way, in 13 years, we will have exactly twice as many people who are 50 and older as we've had 3 years ago, in just 13 years. And there is a wealth of knowledge in that age group. There is a wealth of experience in that age group. We know because AARP has 1.4 million members in Michigan. And in the counties that we're talking about rolling this program out in, we have 462,000 members. And they are talented, they volunteer, they're viable, they were tool and die engineers, they were healthcare managers, they were electricians. And so when Chris and I were talking, we said, well, what if we were, and many of them would love to get back into the workplace. They got early buyouts, they got incentives to leave the workplace, but they still stay abreast or apprised of their skill set. So Chris and I were talking, so what if we were to tap into those resources and talk to employers about hiring an older worker who needs minimal training, who comes to work early and stays all day, they don't have to leave for other issues, who in most cases does not need health care. Major incentive, I'll repeat that, does not need health care. And so if you hire 2 30-hour-a-week people or one, whatever the law allows you to hire, you have a talent base there and people who are just thrilled about coming back to the workplace. And they don't really always need the same level of income that they had when they left the workplace. So the program and what we intend to do about it, and by the way, as Chris mentioned, 82% of executives say that finding a skill set, finding the right talent is their number one challenge. So it's not, kudos to the K through 12 system. You'll hear a lot about that while we're here. They are trying to retool their pipeline, but the need is immediate. It's not something that we can wait 10 or 12 years to have the education system keep track, bring technical education back and keep track with the demand. So supply meet demand or demand meet supply, however you want to say it. We've got these members and they want to get back in the workplace. We've got wonderful partners and we're going to connect our membership and others, not just AARP members and others, anyone. We're going to do a massive recruitment of our membership to see skill set, and to see whether or not they're interested in working. We've already done a little mini test, and the numbers are phenomenal. Out of the 16,000 people that we asked that question of, first of all, 37% opened the email. That's huge, if you know anything about email and marketing on email. And out of those responding, 93% were interested in part-time or full-time work. And then we asked them, what was your last job that you had? And that's where we got everything from a nursing manager to a CPA to an electrician. And then we went and talked with the partners that we've talked about, and they said, absolutely. We just have to change the mindset of people who are doing the hiring to hire older workers. And all they have to do, MBDC has been a wonderful partner, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. They have the website already there. We didn't have to recreate anything. You go on to mytalent, MITALENT.org/jobs or employer, and you type in the skill sets that you're in need of. Then we're going to give the employers time to put those skill sets up there. Then AARP in its power is going to go to work with older adults throughout the state in those communities that we've talked about. And all they have to do is put their skill sets in, and then the match begins to occur. And Michigan Works offices can do the match. The HR professional in your organization can do their own match. Or if you want, AARP will have a job fair for you, and we'll help match you up and do one day somewhere where the job seekers and the employers come together to do the match. But we're very optimistic about this helping to meet the growing demand for talented workers.
You know, I have to tell you, you have to remember this too, and your little comment about 65-year-olds used to be 65 years old. Now they're 45 years old.
Exactly.
Right? And
how would you know that?
This is I don't know because I can't remember either of those ages. But the fact is that you get a vibrant workforce out there. I've talked to two people just in this room today who themselves or their spouses retired and are now running businesses or doing something to keep themselves active because they retired a little too early or had the opportunity to retire early and move on to another career. So these are the personalities you're getting back, and it may cause you to look a little bit at part-time, at kind of variegating the schedule a little bit, those sorts of things. But it's filling out a workforce with a talent that you don't have to retrain, which is incredible. One of the industries, one of the sectors that has been hit as hard as anyone right now is manufacturing. We want to thank Chuck Haddon, the Executive Director of the Michigan Manufacturers Association, for jumping on board so early with this program too. And Chuck, you might give us a little insight into your membership and what's going on.
My membership is, everybody knows the number of my members. You probably drive one of their cars. You probably Dow Corning, Kellogg, Steelcase, Herman Miller. They're my members, but about 80% of my members are less than 200 employees, and 65% of my members are still family owned and run. So it is something in the water here in Michigan that we like to make stuff. And we're going to continue to make stuff, but we don't have the talent necessary. I was at a seminar not long ago for tool and die manufacturers, and I will tell you that in the auto business, they're scared to death because the average tool and die manufacturer right now is about 57 years old. And 60% of them are located in Ohio and Michigan. So the auto business right now depends on them to help make the tools that they're going to need in the future. And the talent isn't there. Now, we have a program that we're working on that will put that talent back together. Michigan Manufacturers Association and the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, or SME, have partnered together to bring the prime programs into the high schools. And the prime programs, for lack of a better word, is basically we're bringing shop class back and putting it in the high schools. We realized what we did was two things as we were working on this. Where we stood before is we had shop class there. We all did our things, and then in the afternoon we went different directions in a choir, and then we all came back and played football or the band. But now it's different. If you want to go to a shop class, you got to get on a bus. And that's a stigma that we have created, that the students don't want to get on a bus. They want to stay with the other students. They don't want to stick out. No matter what their career is, they don't care at that point. They care more about what their other kids think of them. So we need to rethink this a little bit. We also need to rethink what does it take to keep that talent going and keep it here. I can't tell you the worries they have in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, because the kids are all leaving, because there's no talent. They aren't giving them the chance, the talent, to stay there. So if you want your kids to stay here, you got to give them the talent, the chance at the talent to make sure they can stay here. And these are very honorable jobs. And I will tell you that if you talk to my members, there's a vast shortage of these specialties, these skilled positions. Vast, and they're going to be, within about 10 years, they're going to be making $100,000. There's no doubt in my mind, because the demand is going to be there. And so this is a great opportunity. We have our partnership with SME that works with the schools, but what AARP is doing is immediate. And I know many of those people that they worked on committees with me at the Manufacturers Association. One was the chair of my tax committee. He worked for Denso, and I'm sorry, Delphi. Well, Delphi went through bankruptcy, and they let him go. But here's a local tax practitioner that worked for a major worldwide company that took a buyout and was available at this point. So how do we bring those people back and use them? And I think not only bring them back into our businesses, but let's bring them back into our schools a little bit too. Give them that part-time to spend as a master teacher in our schools, so that we can start getting that talent and using that they have. That's not, they didn't retire that long ago. They haven't missed that much of a step at this point. If we don't try to reach out to them, I think we're missing a real golden opportunity.
You know, it's interesting because you made a couple of really points that were salient there, I think, in particular. And one is, I have a friend, I always tell this story, I have a friend on Long Island who is a neurosurgeon. And one night over, as you know, when you do your most creative thinking, was alcohol. And I said to him, you know, in reflecting on your life, how do you feel about what you've done? And he said, well, actually, I would have been a plumber, because on Long Island, they make the same amount of money, and you don't feel as bad about your mistakes, you know? And it was kind of interesting, you alluded to that we have maybe oversold the baccalaureate as the success pattern
absolutely.
to life. And that's why we have this real shortage of people of craft and people of ingenuity. The other piece was the immediacy. And I think that's what we can bring to the table with AARP is there are a lot of fixes for this that are going to take a lot of work. And a lot of them are what a lot of people are doing, training and bringing people into apprenticeships and getting into the schools earlier and working with the community colleges, et cetera. AARP allows an immediate kind of Band-Aid on this as quickly as possible, so that workforce is there available. So who should know more about this talent thing than anybody anywhere than Roger Curtis, right? All right, so I'm going to put a lot of pressure on him and say, is there anything we left out? Fill in the rest, Roger.
Wow, you guys have done a fantastic job, and you're right, this is a very complicated opportunity because there's both, we need to take a look at short-term and long-term opportunities. And we've talked about the pipeline, elementary, middle, high school, the need there to re-energize and refocus on CTE, which I certainly can get into in a minute, because that's a whole stereotype, misperception issue that it is huge, can be overcome, but we certainly have our work cut out for us there. We have some ideas that we can do, but short term, you know, you mentioned the workforce labor pool available of 54 to 65-year-olds is about twice as much, not quite, almost, as what we see in the 25 to 54.
Yeah.
So the warm bodies are there.
Yeah.
And we talk about what an employer is looking for, and certainly a lot of these folks who had very successful professional careers and are now retired, have the opportunity to bring that back, whether it's the actual acumen of the job itself or what a lot of people are referring to as the soft skills, the critical thinking, the collaboration. I mean, those are all there and built in and ready to go. So, and you mentioned Michigan Works as being that conduit to make that happen. Michigan Works, and there's 16 of them around different groups around the state, do awesome work, and a wonderful opportunity for folks to go in there and everything, helping make those connections to the jobs. Also talking about if there is an opportunity where there needs to be upskilling or any retraining for the job that they're looking to go into. All those opportunities, and there's a plethora of programs, so many tools in the toolbox that can help with that, and Michigan Works can help accommodate and facilitate those. But I want to talk about the merger of the short term and long term, because you both have kind of been there, and you touched on it, and that is the ability for these wonderful, experienced workers to go back into the classroom and instruct. And specific, there's a whole host of jobs, but tool, die, mold. I have been so moved. I knew nothing about tool making other than there was such a thing when I started. I mean, I was in motorsports for 25 years, and I knew someone made the tools that made the cars go, but not sure who. And as I've gone around the factories and the facilities since I started, this is an art. You know, to make something from scratch by hand. And I know ultimately it ends up in a CNC machine, and which is a very complicated, you have to be very educated to run these machines. But it is, at its essence, it is an art form. And thus, it is a dying art form. So as these people who know this art are retiring and maybe not coming back into the workforce and not going into the classroom to teach the next generation how to do these things, and I'm picking on tool making, but it's a whole host of, it's construction, it's heavy equipment, it's IT, it's healthcare, it's welding, I mean, I can go on and on and on. All these amazing professional trades need instructors. Now, there are some barriers in public education right now, and I can assure you that Superintendent Whiston and I and the folks at TIA, all of us are joined at the hip in finding solutions. The governor's been a big part of this. We have a huge announcement coming up on June 26th, foreshadowing. We'll let you know where, but please pay attention because it's going to be a major announcement about CTE. And one of the things that we're really focused on is how do we make it easier for these folks who have the experience, who have the skill set, who have the knowledge to get back into the classroom without some of the hurdles of teaching certifications, and to be able to give back to the kids, to teach them, to get them ready for whatever the next step, whatever pathway they want to go down. And there's certainly some challenges there, but we're going to knock those barriers down and make it a lot easier for them to get in the classroom. It's going to be very exciting to see because they have such a wealth of information to give back to these kids.
Absolutely. So we do want to open it to questions from the floor, if you have any along those lines about the program. How many of you, by the way, are business people, own your own businesses, run your own businesses, et cetera? Okay. Are you in concurrence with what we're sharing here, is that there is a talent shortage and it's hard to get people? Are you finding that as well? Yeah. So this is... we do this, the Accident Fund sponsors this Michigan Future Business Index. We do it every 6 months. And 36 months ago, the top 3 issues were access to capital, because businesses were trying to grow and couldn't borrow money, healthcare costs climbing, and government regulation. So I want to warn you, government regulation has been in the top 3 since 1776. Right? So there was no new shocker there. But that flip-flopped all of a sudden in about a 12-month period to this talent acquisition and this dealing with growth. And so we're at a point now where our economic prowess, our economic development is being slowed simply because of talent. So we're kind of desperate to find some solutions here.
And Chris, I'd like to add to something that Roger just said too. We met with Pat Cantu from the Department of Education,
She's
Chris
awesome.
and I, and we are going to open this up to teachers as well, so they can go online and apply. There are some questions about certification and all that. But if you've been in the classroom and you retired, you're probably more likely to be certified faster than someone who's not been in the classroom, or you can just be in the classroom with another master teacher and not even have to go through the certification. So this isn't just for manufacturing or for technical skills, as well as we're going to open this up to the website for those who are educators as well. This is for anybody. When I spoke with the CEO of Detroit Medical Center, he said he needed 13 jobs yesterday, and they were everything from housekeeping to nursing manager. So this impacts any skill set anywhere, whether it's full-time, part-time, 2 30-hour, 2 20-hour, 1 40-hour, whatever the need is. We're going to open it up to everyone.
I'm going to play off that too, Paula, if I may.
Go. You go play.
So in addition to the classroom itself and the, shall we say, traditional CTE classes are available at a tech center or a high school, and the opportunity for some of these experienced workers to come back, I'm also going to extend that into work-based learning, because there are so many great, whether it's apprenticeship, mentorship, internship, co-op, I can go on and on. There's so many different platforms available, early, middle, college, that we're running into a lot of, again, never mind the classroom itself, but at work, who's going to be the mentor when they're doing the work side of the work-based learning program. And so I'm running into a lot of companies, particularly small and medium-sized, that say, okay, I love the idea of an apprenticeship and all the benefits that brings to both the worker and the student, but I don't have the bandwidth. So here's another opportunity, whether that worker was originally with you or not, they may still have the skill set that your company needs, and with the folks from AARP and some of these amazingly experienced folks can come in and do that work-based learning program at your company for you. The big companies, they're finding the bandwidth and they have that, but this is going to open up a whole nother opportunity for that side with the work-based learning too.
Absolutely. And I am the poster child. I should probably have a frame around my face for re-careering. I mean, I was in education for almost 25 years, president of a college, president of a bank for 9 years, and now I'm state director for AARP Michigan. I don't say that in terms of any kind of accolades, but you talk about how you can re-career at any age and how you can learn new skill sets at any age. And knowing that educational system and being passionate about it helps us work with the educational system. Knowing banking and how hard it is to get financing, what small businesses, Chris and I worked together. He was on the board of directors and I was the president of the bank for a bank that primarily catered to small businesses, understanding small businesses and the need for capital, the need for talent. And now I'm with people who are probably more talented, more vital, and more engaged in their community and giving back to the community than ever. And so pulling all those together into this program is just a natural for Chris and I and for all of us who work at AARP. It's just a natural fit.
So just a little quick sidebar story here. She has had 3 major careers, and her offices have been within a block and a half of each other.
That's where all the good things happen. What can I tell you?
She can totally reinvent, but she can't move.
Something has to stay the same.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah.
Chris, can I take a moment?
Sure,
I want to go back to the tool and die makers, because I think Roger hit it. Most people don't know what they do.
Yeah.
And it really is industrial arts. I mean, I heard that when I was growing up, and we're going off for industrial arts. But these guys, somebody comes to me and says, well, I need a tool to make this, and it's got to fit around this and this, and some guy goes back and makes that. I mean, I don't know how they do that, or how that can be trained. But if you have a master that shows you how to do that, think of the skill you have. I don't care what your educational level is, the skill you're going to have and the demand you're going to have if you have that talent. But you can't do it unless you have that help.
Yeah.
Well, and you talk about that being an art form. I mean, there's other things. We look at CNC operators. How many CNC operators could you place in the state of Michigan right now?
Oh, a whole bunch.
Oh, tons.
Anywhere.
Instantly.
Everybody
Anywhere.
needs them.
Yeah.
The problem is it takes several years to get
Yes.
them to where they're, from nowhere to CNC operation.
And that's all of them, whether it's IT or healthcare or construction, advanced manufacturing, welding. I mean, all of this is about, and if I may, so this is my little soapbox speech. All of us in this room have a role to play in helping change this, because we as a society have allowed the pendulum to swing from where it was, years ago with shop class to everything 4-year, 4-year, 4-year. We're getting ready to swing that pendulum all the way back too far, in my opinion, over here. We need to stop it in the middle, because we need all the above. We need engineers, we need IT, we need construction, we need plumbers, we need welders, we need all of it. And so it's hard for us as human beings to deal with complicated issues, but this is what we're going to have to deal with. It can't be an either-or bucket. And as I've been around, I get really frustrated with, you're either college ready or you're not. No, that's not the conversation we need to be having. And I was at a graduation not too long ago, and I went up to each one, and I was asking them not where they wanted to go or where they were going, but what they wanted to do first. What do you want to do? And then where we are going to learn how to do that. And, I'm going to Western, I'm going to Northern, and I was going to Jackson College. What? I'm just going to Jackson College. What do you mean you're just going to Jackson College? So a lot of adults around that student had embedded that perception in his or her head that just going to get an associate's degree, just to go learn advanced manufacturing, just to start off with no debt, making $60,000 a year, just.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of you play a role in helping change the conversation about these jobs. And it's not either or anymore. It's all about being career ready, about multiple pathways. And what does the student want to do? What are they good at? What do they have the aptitude? And then help them find that.
Let me follow up on that if I could, just real quick. I'm sorry, because
We don't need you to moderate it
What the
all.
hell? Get rid of this guy. What I think is so brilliant about this is that there are places that are doing this. If you go to the city of Jackson, they are very good at doing this, and they do a middle college, and the manufacturers come in and they help support the kids as they're going to get that extra year of high school or apprenticeship in this case, and then they come out and they are hired. If they're not hired, then they have a job somewhere else, and they will find them a job somewhere else. But the key, I think, of this whole thing is, and all my members tell me this, you get me somebody that can start doing this, I'll pay for them to go to community college.
Yeah.
And then if they're done and they want to go further, they want to get an engineering degree, I'll pay for that. They go to Ferris, they can go to Ferris, get an engineering degree, I'll pay for that. They want to go for more than that, I'll pay for that.
And then once you hire them, there'll be an older person there to help show them the ropes, to show them how to do what they need to do.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. A few of you know this, I think, but my first career was in education, 10 years in the classroom, teaching, coaching, proud graduate of Eastern Michigan University, which was great teaching college. I'm going to get an applause here. And you know, it's because of that background that I think I have a little bit of the advantage that maybe Paula has also, having been in education. You see how closely knit the communities of education and business are. I remember not too many years ago kicking off the M Squared program at the Henry Ford, and it was patterned after kind of the German system where you get involved early on in education, business does, and so they move kids through apprenticeships, etc. Now, I'm not saying tracking is the wherewithal that that's going to be the answer, but some semblance of these are our needs and we should be working towards them, I think makes some good sense for all of us, right? I know you see this a little bit because we seem to be, I hesitate to share the story, but someone was cutting my hair. Was somebody giggling?
How long did it take?
So I was, I had time to get here. So. We started talking, what are you doing? Well, she was graduating soon with a degree in art therapy. And I said, so where do you go with art therapy? And she didn't know. And I know why she didn't know. There weren't many places you could go in art therapy. Somebody hadn't said, look, this is really neat, you'll hang it on the wall, and that's the sum total of what you may get out of this. And I'm not down on art therapists, don't get me wrong, but what percentage of our population is employed there where this person who was pretty creative could have gone into some other things and walked into a job and filled that talent need. So it's incumbent upon the education system as well to kind of track and say realistically, these are the things that you can go into.
So I want to tie Paula back in and her great program one more time, because one of the recommendations we're going to put forward is that we create more time for career exploration from elementary school to high school. We don't have it now. I mean, how many kids do all of us know that are graduating from high school that have no idea what they want to do, or think that they do, but then it turns out very quickly that they don't. And that's because there is little to no time for career exploration, meaningful career exploration in our school system. And so what we're going to recommend and put forward, I hope, is going to create the time, the bandwidth, the opportunity for a meaningful conversation and exploration around a multitude of careers to find out what you want to do, maybe just as importantly what you don't want to do, so we can mark those things off and help you. And that's where having experienced workers come in, certainly at the elementary and even sometimes the middle school, I think the opportunity is going to be to have workers come in and professionals come in and explain some of these careers. There's job shadowing opportunities that we want to make sure are available, and having an experienced worker be able to take those students around is going to be important. We are looking at incorporating an entire class at some point in late middle school, so that there is literally a time for those students to go out into the field, into these different professions, and be paired up with an experienced worker to learn about these, maybe even do some hands-on stuff. And this is beyond, I mean, this is well before you make a decision to do apprenticeship. I mean, this is like really apprenticeship light, if you will. But have that opportunity in our school systems for that career exploration that just doesn't physically exist in the curriculum right now.
One of the things.
Go ahead.
One of the things that our partnership with SME, they are very good at giving schools what they need. In fact, they even have a summer camp program that the kids can come and try some different things and see if they like it. And that's in the middle school, am I right? Yeah, in the middle school they're doing that. So there's a real advantage of taking some of these programs and putting them into real life and just giving them a chance to try some things.
Right. And for those of you who've been around quite a bit, like I have, I've been in education for a quarter of a century, none of this is new. It's just recycled.
Yep.
And particularly community colleges, they are phenomenal. And yet, just like Chris mentioned, people always want to say that they're sending their child to Harvard or to Brown or to MSU or somewhere else and not to the community college. But this isn't new. So all AARP is trying to do is connect the dots. Yes, we want to work with that K through 12 pipeline. We'll do everything that we can. But there's also a talent base that's out there right now twiddling their thumbs trying to figure out how can I make a contribution again? What can I do? How can I give back to the community? And they have the experience, they have the skill set, they have the time, and they don't need all the benefits that someone else needs. And so the demand for the jobs is right now. It's not, once we get all these programs connected and all these dots connected. 82% of executives who were polled said that talent is their number one issue. They didn't say 3 years from now, they didn't say 5 years from now, they said right now. So AARP is trying to fill that immediate gap while we still work on all these other pipeline issues. And we have again, that's just our membership of 1.4 million. And then just think of if they all have one friend. Now we're talking 2.8 million. I mean, I did the math, 2.8 million, and on and on and on. And they have, if 10% of them have the skill set that's needed right now for Chuck or for Roger or for any of your businesses, we can help connect those dots. mytalent.org/jobs.
Yeah, and I think it's important because you have a tendency when you have some success to do this and then do this and then expand, and before you know it, you're losing your mission.
Exactly.
And I think it's important that you all understand that AARP's mission in this program is to bring that talent pool back in on some basis and shore up, basically, get you the talent that you need as the talent comes up from underneath. I can specifically remember sitting with a gentleman, some of you may remember him, Doug Stites, who ran the Michigan Works in Lansing, Michigan. And I was on his board, and he called me, and we had lunch, and he showed me this stuff, and he was very upset about it, and he said, can you look at this? And I looked at this sheet, and it showed that in 18 years, we were going to have a talent shortage. 18 years. And I thought, yeah, okay, so we got a little time here, right? And the fact was we didn't have a little time. We went out right away and we started the Manufacturers Council, and then we started an IT council, and it was all about those people getting together and starting to see how they were going to deal with that talent shortage. And you know what? We're knee-deep in the talent shortage right now.
Right.
This is the 18 years.
Yep. And Valerie Hogue, who was wonderful in MEDC, she's been a great partner, thank you. She said to me something that was very sobering. Everybody says this is a great idea, But when an employer sees that gray-haired older person walk in to fill out an application to take on a position, they're not so apt to hire that person because that mindset is still that they're older. That's the reality. And so we have to change the mindsets of employers that, again, like I started, 50, 60, 70 years old is not what it used to be anymore. I can tell you, I'm a witness, it's not what it used to be anymore. All right, so it's like opening the mindset of people, employers in particular, to say, here's a real viable employee. And young people change jobs. So it's 6 times between the time they graduate from high school and they're 34 or 35 years old. So that person could have, the older person will probably be at that job longer than someone that you might just hire, particularly if they're really talented, because someone else is going to be competing for them and competing to take them and offering them a little bit more money. So stability, dependability, commitment to the workforce, understanding the loyalty and an employer and all that, you get that right away when you look at hiring someone who's more mature, who's been in that workplace before.
It's funny as I sit up here, I'm looking over the room, and I'm able to point out a few people, but I want to call out a name who everybody will recognize. I look at Jim Haveman, who's back here, who has done so many wonderful things for the state of Michigan in so many important positions, and literally all over the world. And I look at him, and 2 things come into my mind. One is, I don't want him to rest for personal reasons. I never wanted to see Jim take a break. But the second is, if he decided to not be involved, what a talent we would be losing. And that's where we are.
Exactly right.
We want to keep this talent in the workplace to help foster the new talent that's coming in, but also, to bolster those shortage areas.
I saw
Anybody-
someone had a question. I think they were going to ask a question.
Yeah, we've got mics here, so if somebody's got a question, just pop your hand up if you would real quick. Anybody got up here got a final comment on anything? Now, we've got 20 minutes left, so think about sitting in here 20 minutes in silence, all right?
We got one.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm sorry. I actually have 2 questions. Not to be a pig, but which counties will this be in?
We're going to roll this out in Wayne County, in Ingham County, Macomb, and Jackson.
Okay, thanks. And also, talking about changing mindset of employers, changing mindset of parents. So I know you're going to get into the high schools to talk to the kids, and you're going to get, through your membership, you're going to talk to your members. But how do you plan on reaching the employers? How do you plan on reaching the parents who maybe their child comes home excited about tool and die or whatever, but the parent's heart is set on Michigan, or set on MSU, and anything less than 4 years of failure?
I probably will talk to them very subtly and very confidently and tell them this is a good start. Let them start doing this. The employer will pay the rest of the way. Now, do you, as a parent, if they want to go on to MSU after that, they certainly can go on to their engineering school, and the employer is probably going to pay for that, as long as they keep coming back every summer and working with
Right.
them. And that's what they're going to be looking for. So, okay, rather than getting a scholarship to MSU or U of M, you're still going to have it paid for. And that's much more practical than the other way around. And the employer wants to do this. I mean, they want that talent, and it's not. This has been tried in other places. Grand Rapids does a great job of this, in that the employers got together and started putting them into Grand Rapids Community College, and then they went on to Ferris, and they stay with those employers when they do that. They're very loyal to them when they do, and they move up the ranks very quickly, too.
And
Yeah,
I will tell you that from my experience, I will never promote a program that I would not promote to my own children or grandchildren. So in education, I would never promote for someone to be in tool and die or plumbing if I would not at the kitchen table, at my own private dining table, say that program's good enough for my own kids. It has to be career-driven, other opportunities. And the programs that we're talking about are. What we did is, to answer your question specifically, we fed them. We would room at a hotel. We'd invite parents in the school district to come to a free meal. We'd have industry experts from those different industries talking with them. They're there with their suits, their ties, they're very professional, telling about the potential for earning income, and that's all parents hear. George can make how much money? You know, that's all, in
one.
2 years and 3 years and 5 years. And that got their interest. It opened their mindset because it is very close. Everyone thinks 4-year, 4-year, 4-year. And then the community college was there to say, we can give you a 2-year track. We'll work with you. We'll help give you resources, make sure you stay on track. You might have had Oracle software. You might have had General Motors saying, and once you finish that track, here's what we'll do to help train you. So they saw a path that they could go on to make additional income. But what we all need to be careful of, and this is straight talk, which is something that I do well, is that the program isn't a dead end. So that some machine's going to come and take that over, and then someone's going to be. So you've got to keep learning, and that's what Chris promotes, that continued learning.
Lifelong learning.
Continued lifelong learning. So once you get that skill set, get another skill set, learn something else. Never, ever, ever stop learning. And that's what we have to tell our kids.
People will tell you that it's like Kaizen, it's like the Japanese. But let me tell you something. Before the Japanese, it was a Deming. And so we took it there in post-war Japan. But your question is really steeped in some realities that we have to confront.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
we have the same problem around the dinner table where there's no parent there. And education, period, is not the topic of conversation.
right.
Tomorrow might not even be the topic of conversation. So that's going to always be a challenge that we have. And we know that 70% of success educationally is around that dinner table. It's the family unit. And so, you know, everybody's going to try as hard as they can to reach that family unit, but that's a real problem that we've always had and we're going to always have.
And I got to mention my shirt, Going Pro. So we re-energized and reskinned our state campaign, which I hope and believe that at some point Going Pro will be the equivalent for workforce what Pure Michigan is for travel. And look, right, well, let's not look through this through rose-colored glasses. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot of heavy lifting to change these perceptions. But you know, we are going to have a paid media campaign, an earned media campaign, a social media campaign, videos and blogs and a website, and we're going to get out and do hand-to-hand combat, and we're going to talk to the parents, and we're going to bring employers in for meetings. We're going to make sure that career fairs stay open to allow the students who are excited to go home and bring their parents back later when they're off work so they can see some of these things as well. So it's going to have to be all these. It's not one or the other. It's all of us doing the things that we need to do to change these perceptions and stereotypes. And I will tell you, getting into the weeds a little bit, but one of the things that we need to do, and Superintendent Whiston and the governor are all on board, is if we get a parent who's on a fence, my son or daughter wants to take some of these classes at the tech center, but if they take those and decide that's not what they want to do, then that's a waste of time because those credits won't transfer to MSU or Michigan. We're probably better than we ever have been in this state of those credits transferring, but we're not nearly as close. So our position is, and there is an entity in the state that can make a determination if that is a rigorous and robust enough class. And if it is, if you're taking public money, then you will take the public credit. And you will count it toward that student's 4-year degree if that's what the student decides to do. I mean, that's probably what we're going to have to distill it down, because now then the parents will say, well, yeah, go ahead and give it a try, because if you're fulfilling your math in your carpentry class, if you're fulfilling your math credit and that can go on then to college with you and it's one less class you have to take, well, then go ahead and give it a try, Johnny or Susie.
Well, and better yet, I want to go to Michigan, or you should go to Michigan and be an engineer. Okay, engineer for what? A computer engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer?
Yeah.
Maybe give yourself a chance to try some of these things and see what you think you're best at.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the real advantage you have at some of this, and doing it free. I mean, it's going to be paid for.
The real bottom line
Mary?
is that Roger wanted you to know that he hasn't paid for a piece of clothing in several years.
Ever.
We had to have Going Pro. I threw out all my MIS shirts.
I think Mary has
Mary
a question.
Kramer.
Yeah, I just, one of the issues, I think, when you look at the statistics, okay, this is the Detroit News reporting on research last year, that actually the percentage of adults in Michigan between the ages of 25 and 64 with a 4-year degree, with some kind of degree, is less than 40%.
Yep.
But if you combine people with just a high school diploma or some college but never even completed a 2-year degree, it's in the mid-50s. So that seems like your target pool, not so much persuading parents not to send their kids to a four-year degree, but there's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people
Oh,
in
yeah.
the state
huge
who
segment.
had expectations of college, went to college, racked up some bills,
Yeah.
and never finished. And though that target population, I think, is really prime to see a pathway to a better career, better earning, better everything. So do you have a strategy for that population?
So that's a job of all of Michigan. Remember our mission here at AARP. So Roger, this is now kind of acquiesced into your backyard. So because you're the one that's going to have a strategy for capturing that group, right? So you want to make up something real quick?
No.
Well, while he's thinking about that, community colleges take anyone. Okay, so they can go
Open
train.
enrollment.
The oldest person at a community college when I was there was 93 years old. Okay, and so that inspired me about to keep learning. So they will take, we don't have to recreate everything. There are systems in place now. We just have to promote them and encourage them. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that was one of the ones I was going to mention, but our workforce development team, as part of TED, have a lot of great programs, and whether it's the Skilled Trades Training Fund or a plethora of other opportunities, I think the biggest issue, and we keep coming back to this, is communication. How do you reach this population? We have some tools in the toolbox. We have some great tools out there. We have some great best practices at all these different levels that whether it's the experienced workforce, the young workforce, the new kids, what have you, but how do you communicate to those target audiences? And we, for so long, outside of pure Michigan, government, and this is a blanket statement, so forgive me for the exceptions, but government, we have not done a great job of marketing.
That's correct.
That tends to be a negative word because that's a misuse of taxpayer dollars in a lot of people's eyes. How can you spend taxpayer dollars on marketing? But if it's just a big of injustice if taxpayers don't know about the programs that are there to help them and to help their brothers and sisters and other citizens around them, that their taxpayer dollars are being put to good use. So whether you want to call it marketing or I've been told to call it education and outreach, that's a much more acceptable term, I think. We have a lot of work to do with education and outreach.
Is it a different budget? Still same dollar. Kelly?
Well,
Thanks, Mary.
Speaking of education and outreach, I notice there's no one here from the high school education community. And one of the things that I find lacking as a mother of 4 kids, there were not career counselors really at all in high schools anymore. And the only shove that my kids ever had was to go to college. There was no one to talk up trades. And so it's incumbent on us to make trades as accessible as it is to go to an AP class when you're a junior or senior in high school. So what can we do to help do that grassroots effort, Roger, that you were talking about, which is really bring the education community in, because they really are driven
Yep.
to push higher education, meaning the next institution.
Well, I can answer that just a little bit because the SME program that we're using right now, or that we're starting with, we're going to be making an announcement in a month or so of a school that's going to take one of these programs on. And it's not your usual blue-collar school. I'll just put it that way. It's a tourist town, but they want their kids to be able to stay there longer. And what we did is the manufacturer got together, brought the superintendent with them, and they went down and looked at a prime program that was in action down in Ohio. And the superintendent was opposed to it until they went down and saw what they're doing. And what they do down there is they put these prime students, and everybody can go through the class. They're out front, they're center, everybody sees them going through the class, so you can get your credit in math through welding, or you can get your credit through math by sitting in a classroom. Either way, and everybody has a chance to do it. There's no stigma to doing it. That gives everybody a chance to sort of sit on it. If we get the superintendents to buy in on some of those things, Kelly, I think we can get more of those, but we have to get them in the classrooms, and it's going to take some time.
So
And June-
I have a statement.
June 26th, we'll be announcing a lot, so I don't want to steal all of the stuff that's happening that day. But I can assure you that the 700 to 1 ratio average that counselors faced, counselor to student, is very high on our radar screen, and finding opportunities to augment the counselors, because I'm not taking a shot at them. These poor souls are being asked to do things that, I mean, just well above and beyond.
One
And
per 1,000 students.
it's insane. And now they're being asked to administer the SAT or ACT at their schools and deal with discipline issues and so on and so forth. So the career navigator, as I would prefer to call it, that segment of their job is gone in most part. So finding a multitude of ways, and there are some amazing best practices out there. I've seen them in Muskegon. I see them with Jobs for Michigan graduates. I see there's a lot of opportunities out there to scale these up. But to give these schools, give these districts an opportunity to bring in and support the augmentation of the counselors so that you have a unbiased but educated adult that can be a voice there to help that student. What do you like? What do you have the aptitude for? What are the opportunities? How are you going to get there? What are the pathways? What are the classes? And really guide them, because right now they take the EDP. It's mandatory. It's not part of the school improvement plan. It gets put on a shelf, probably at most schools, not all, never gets touched again, and they're on their own. And you end up with what our output is right now. So it's very high on the radar screen.
And wouldn't it be great for that student to see an older worker who's done that, been there, done that?
Yep.
It can't be what you can't see in that classroom, to encourage them as well?
Got a question down here.
I just had, when I was in high school, I had a choice. I could either take home ec or I could take welding, and I chose welding.
Yeah.
But, and it was fun, right? And I still remember some of it, but there were no other girls around at that point. And so what do you have in place to really zone in on women in the fields, that we're talking about with regard to skilled trades, whether it's a mentorship from a male or female who's done it in the past? I just don't think there are enough women in that area.
Oh, no, not even
Not
close.
enough.
So is there a special focus at all on that? What are you doing?
There will be. I'm going to be really super candid with you, though. There are some programs out there. They maybe don't have 100% of TED's focus right now, and that is because some of the things you're going to hear from the governor on the 26th and was articulated over here, like counselors, for example, there are so many big fundamental issues that we haven't really even had a chance in my first 6 months working with Superintendent Whiston and many other groups to form these recommendations that are fundamental to get off in a I hate to call it a nuanced area, but to focus on something like that when we need counselors, we need instructors. We have a funding model where 47% of our kids live in a county that doesn't have a CTE millage. How are we going to open up opportunities for these experienced workers, like Paula continues to talk about, to get into the classroom, to provide that mentorship, to provide the job shadowing? So those are the things we're looking at. And then, yes, I hope in my next 6 months, we'll be able to really focus on a whole host of, look, the talent pipeline right now and the need out there, we'll take men, women, I don't care what color you are, I don't care what religion you are, I don't care. I know the workers don't care. Are you good? Can you think on your feet? Can you communicate? Can you collaborate? Can I train you with specific skill? If you have that, you're hired. There's 100,000 of them right now.
And I see there's another question, and there's like 3 minutes left.
I think-
One quick statement. There's 100,000 jobs unfilled in Michigan right now, 100,000 today. And so we want to work on that pipeline, but we also want to help those manufacturers and employers fill those jobs today. Question?
Thank you. My name is Janine and Coons from SME, and we get the great opportunity to work with Chuck, so thank you for your comments. I did have a question, but I was going to make a statement to the career counselor question that was asked. SME is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing manufacturing, and I happen to sit on a national coalition for career counseling. We actually have a meeting coming up in a couple weeks. It involves actually the national organization of career counselors. And to let you know, so it's great to hear, Roger, that there's things happening in Michigan, but I wanted to share that they're at a national level at the career counselors. So this is the Association of Career Counselors. They are certainly recognizing through DC at the national level of the CTE program that the ratio that you talked about, that the career counselors are being focused to work on
Yeah.
students that are troubled, they're just not able to do the career exploration. So there's things that are happening at a national level. So I'd love to talk to you and kind of connect that to what's happening here
Absolutely.
in Michigan. And then also to the how to get more girls. Some of the things that are happening at SME is other areas that are expanding in manufacturing. When you think of 3D printing, there's things that I think will be more attractive maybe to young girls that'll help them at least get in the right
Welding was
path.
attractive to at least
Yeah,
one.
right. But at least if we can find more entry doors
Yeah,
to young
yeah,
girls, then they
yeah.
could find their way maybe to welding or machining or something
Sure.
else. But we have to get something to get them to even see something that maybe looks like them. But now I'll end with my question. Interestingly, we talked a lot about the retiring workforce and then them coming back, from their maybe early retirement. One thing that didn't come up in the panel that I was intrigued about, because we work with manufacturing companies quite a bit, and what we find inside the company that's happening is, you talked about the tool and die maker check and how do you get someone maybe to take that job, but what we see as a big issue is not documenting the job. So the person leaves, and we talk about the tribal knowledge left,
Yep.
but why didn't we get it before they left? So why didn't we do something? Do you have anything that you're seeing, best practices or comments to what organizations can do just within their own walls, just to kind of keep it, capture it, document it, so those that are upcoming,
I
either new-
appreciate that question because I think
good one.
it is, because they aren't looking ahead. And one of the things the Prime program does with SME is gets the manufacturers together first and makes them do an analysis of what they need, because it may be different with different manufacturers. What do you need right now? What do you need in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And get them thinking about it. And then they bring the superintendent in after they get the list of needs and sort of go through it with them and say, we want to help you get to this point, and we're willing to put money into this to get it done. And that's how we're doing it with SME and Prime.
So that's a great conclusion to the session. I want to thank you, Chuck
Okay, one more.
Hatton.
She said she had time for one more. She,
Just
Very true.
Chris Allen, I want to thank AARP and the panelists. I feel the energy up there and the positivity. The question I have is, in many work settings, you have traditionalists, you got millennials, you got baby boomers, Gen X, and could you speak to either the students or the 50-plus worker coming into that environment? Because many organizations, they look at team effort around accomplishment, and is in your programming a discussion around this age gap and how the 50-plus worker or the student coming into an organization, how they might work together?
This is really interesting because as you see, a lot of this conversation today has moved away from the AARP mission. I mean, it really has become a general, how does education get involved in that? If you would like to hang around, we'll be glad to talk to you. We're totally out of time, and that one put us over, and I apologize for that, but by all means, hang around.
But it is a positive thing. It is a very
It
positive
is.
thing.
It is. It is. So again, Chuck, thank you so much.
Chris.
Michigan Manufacturers. Roger, thank you. And Godspeed in your mission.
Thank you.
At TED, and of course, Paula Cunningham, Director.
And we'll be around.
Thank you all for being here. Take this with you. Spread the gospel. Thank you.